Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. We also run you through the fan questions where Dolphins fans ask questions. I answer them in the fan Q&A segment. We do not have a clip of the week this week, unfortunately. And usually it's hard to find one right after a game ends. That's a good one. So we don't have one this week. So let's get into the first news story. And then we'll run you through the box score. Obviously, that's some of the news you need to know about. Josh Rosen was benched on Sunday. Again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Josh Rosen benched will start moving forward. The Dolphins benched Josh Rosen during their close loss to the Washington Redskins today, and Ryan Fitzpatrick provided a spark off the bench. Fitzpatrick led 2 late touchdown drives and had Miami within a 2-point conversion of their first win of the season, but he won't be holding the job moving forward. Speaking after the game, head coach Brian Flores confirmed Rosen would remain the team starter next week against the Bills. According to Cameron Wolfe of ESPN.com, Flores said recently Rosen would be the team starter for the rest of the year, barring injury, so this isn't surprising. Still, Fitzpatrick undeniably played much better Sunday. Obviously, winning isn't the top priority for Miami right now, so it sounds like they're going to continue to take a look at the UCLA product, although it would not be shocking if he gets pulled again soon. This is a very weird situation that it falls on coaching, number one. We almost won that game today, and we'll get into what all happened and some of the calls that were made towards the end of the game. And some of the decisions that were made that weren't great. But I feel, other than literally the last play, I think everything else was pretty dang good. But in terms of play calling, but this to me, and why I bring up play calling, is a coaching issue. It is a little weird that you tell your team a week before this game or it was during the bye week at some point, I don't really know when, that Josh is the starter moving forward. And he has settled in the position, right? Then we play the Redskins. And without watching the coach's tape, which I feel like is the best way to evaluate what actually happened on Sunday, to be 100% definitively sure, I'm just going off of the game that I watched on television. So things could be wrong in my assessment of things, but it wasn't pretty. Pass protection on play action passes, which really got the offense in a rut early. See, I'm already getting into the game. I gotta stick to this topic. My point really being, and how this is kind of weird, just how he's handling it, is you can't have that message to your team, and then pull him, and then you put Fitzpatrick in, and then he scores, the following two, really just to get us back in the game. I mean, he was the reason we even got back in the game. He was on those 2 touchdown drives, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long day. So he might not. I think he was, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, he got us back in the game. He looked better. He was more decisive with his throws. Yada yada yada. He just looked a lot better when he was in the game. I felt like the play calling was a little bit more aggressive, which was weird. It was a little less safe, which I thought was a little odd. It was a lot more shotgun. It was a lot more tempo. Now, granted, we were down, but we really didn't see that. We were down the entire game that Josh Rosen was in starting, and we didn't see that kind of stuff. It was just really the first time we've ever seen a formula of the offense be that consistent. Now, granted, this was the Redskins, but it was consistent, on a few drives there. If it wasn't for a couple of mental mistakes, like a bad snap and a terrible penalty that the referees didn't call on Troy Apke. But there was a lot of chemistry there. There was a lot of flow to kind of like shun that to the team and be like, yeah, we kind of are ignoring the fact that we had a lot of success with him in the game, and the play calling was different. It was more aggressive. It was more, we're trying to win this game. For whatever reason, whether they were down, they weren't trying to get, maybe when Josh is in there a little bit, save them to protect him, not put him into situations where he can make a bad decision. And to me, and again, this is my takeaway from what I saw on television for the first time in terms of play calling. To me, that's a bad sign for Josh Rosen. If they can't trust him enough to run the same offense that Ryan Fitzpatrick is capable of running, then he doesn't need to be playing. I mean, I get it, he's not as savvy in this offense and yada, 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 but to not even let him be put in those situations to see if he can execute it is really weird. The offense was different with both of them, and that was very evident on Sunday. It was different. The play calling, like I said, was way more aggressive than it was with Josh Rosen in the game. So there's just a lot more trust with Fitzpatrick in the game, which was just odd. I don't really know what kind of message it sends to the team. I'm not in that locker room. I've never been a professional athlete before. I couldn't tell you how an athlete would take that. Maybe it's a little bit more, it's probably less weird for them because they've had it their entire lives. They've been playing football. I'm sure this has happened a million times. So I don't know on the psychology side of it. I couldn't tell you what it does to a locker room, but I will say this: the game plan was different. It was definitely noticeably different between the two quarterbacks. That's what I find so weird about this news. So he is our guy moving forward, but how about we run that offense that we were running with? Now, whether he'll fail or not, I don't think, and whether he'll take more hits or not, I think is all factors into the decision making into what kind of offense we run. But it was not whether it's Josh not being fast enough to run this offense and to understand and to process quick enough what is going on, which is probably why he isn't given the keys to the car, because clearly Ryan Fitzpatrick he has a lot more knowledge, and of course he does. He's been in the league for so long, but clearly they feel more comfortable with him in the game than they do Josh Rosen. They clearly trust him to make more plays than they do Josh Rosen, to the point of the offense being noticeably more aggressive when he was in the game. Now, I mean, you have to factor in the fact that we were down, but we saw the offense when he was in there when we were down, and we were down for a long time, and it wasn't that aggressive. And it worked. It worked. I mean, and to be fair, listen, the Redskins are a terrible team, but they have two good pass rushers, and they have a good interior rush as well. Josh Allen, who's a good player. Ryan Kerrigan, one of the better pass rushers in the league. Montez Sweat, he's a good young player. He's not what he's going to be in the future, but he's still pretty solid right now in his career. It's not terrible. It wasn't like they were going against the bummiest of bum defensive lines. They weren't. There was talent there that could rush the passer. And, their back end is terrible, but, that's, I guess, at least a little bit of a positive. But there was a noticeable drop-off there. That was the thing that really alarmed me. And that's the weird thing about him starting moving forward. If you're going to start him, put him in the best situations to win. Maybe they don't think he can execute it at that high of level. Maybe he can't process it. Maybe he can't do it as fast as Ryan Fitzpatrick. But at least let him try, because we as fans want to see that. We don't want to see this cookie cutter crap anymore. It's old. It's very, to be honest with you, it doesn't seem like we're very game plan specific to each defense we play on offense. Defense, I do believe that we do a good amount of adjustments to what the defense or the offense wants to do against us, which is a good thing. And I hope, I can't wait to see what that defense looks like when it has actual people who can rush the passer on it, because it's going to be really fun to watch. And people who can actually cover. But offensively, it's been more of the same. Now, I know that they want to establish the running, all this other stuff, but we haven't seen wrinkles. We haven't seen changes. And a good example of a good coaching staff, because this is what this new story revolves around for me, is the coaching staff and putting him in the best position to win. A good example of that was the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers lost Ben Roethlisberger. The Pittsburgh Steelers lost Mason Rudolph. Granted, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a leaps and bounds better offensive line than the Dolphins do. That's undeniable. But they changed their offense. They didn't just sit back and let things. They drastically changed it to put their players in the best position to win, with the Wildcat formations. With some of the stuff that they did in that game, to not put it all on the quarterback, to make his life easier. Just because you don't have the talent to do it, which we don't. We don't have the talent to run any offense. I don't care what it is. At least attempt to make it schematically put your players in the best position to succeed. Because regardless of what this team runs, I don't care what it is, it's not going to work on offense. I don't care what it is. But, like I said, schematically, it's nothing new that anyone has seen. It's nothing, it doesn't put any stress on the defense. For the, they're not thinking every play when Josh Rosen was in that game at all. It was very one-dimensional. It was very sad. It was very poor. The plays were not, they just weren't imaginative. They weren't good enough. It needs to be better moving forward. And when Ryan Fitzpatrick was in the game, it was better. It was more aggressive. It was the tempo. It was more decisive. It was more just, we know what we're doing on game to game. Even like players getting lined up and everything like that was better. It just, the whole offense ran better when he was at the quarterback position. And to be fair to Josh Rosen, the offense just hasn't been that aggressive with him in the lineup for whatever reason in terms of play calling. I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously, I think if Ryan Fitzpatrick started that game, maybe we still run some of that play action stuff that just got absolutely destroyed. I mean, that was the worst I've seen. That was clearly a point of emphasis for the Redskins, knowing that we max protect on play action and to just send everybody. But, it is what it is, dude. I just don't like the... I mean, it was clear. There was an obvious difference in the way the offense was called for whatever reason, and whatever you want to speculate what the reason is. When he was in the game, Fitzpatrick was in the game, it was more aggressive. There's no doubt about it. Whether that was because of the situation, whether that was because of whatever, it doesn't matter. If that offense showed up in the first quarter, that game would not have been close. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if it would have been close, but we would have won the game. I can tell you that right now, because our defense did one heck of a job on Sunday. At least in my opinion. I mean, for what this defense's standards are, it did one heck of a job. I don't want you guys to take my words seriously sometimes, because I'm it's this team, which is not a good team. The standards that they have, it did a very good job in my opinion. So let's get into the box score and just give you the numbers, the quick rundown. And we really kind of ran down I mean, I guess we could talk about certain players, whether that's Mark Walton but we've covered the quarterbacks. I mean, clearly, I guess we'll get into more specifics about Josh Rosen, because I feel like we kind of just talked about the coaching and play calling. But specifically about Josh Rosen finished, and he played more football than Ryan Fitzpatrick. He finished 15 for 25 for 85 yards and 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions. Ryan Fitzpatrick, in relief of Josh Rosen, listen to this. This is the same defense he was playing, by the way, the entire game. 12 for 18 with 132 yards, a touchdown, and 0 interceptions. That is a significant difference. Receiving-wise, Mike Gesicki finished with 3 catches for 51 yards. Mark Walton finished second in receiving for 5 receptions for 43. Preston Williams finished third in receiving with 2 catches, 31. Kenny Drake finished fourth with 6 catches, 30 yards receiving. Devontae Parker had the clutch touchdown at the end. That's literally all he did. Allen Hurts had a couple of good plays there as well. So overall, receiving-wise, the only disappointment I would say is Albert Wilson. Everybody else kind of played like they have all year. So yeah, to get into more specifics with Josh Rosen and some of the things that were just a little bit different. Number one, he isn't very good, and he needs to get better at picking up blitzes. Clearly, the Redskins, and if you'll notice, they blitzed. I don't know why they didn't blitz Ryan Fitzpatrick, because I don't care if they picked the. I mean, we're just not capable of, talent-wise, matching up one-on-one with all of their pass rushers and winning. That just won't happen. So if you send extra people, that's inevitably going to happen. But the Redskins definitely took advantage of his age and experience with some of those things. They also, one of the other things I'll say about Josh, just a lot of mental errors when it comes to balls that should not have been thrown and decisions that should not have been made. When we were in plus territory, I can't remember the score at the time, but we were going into score. We were definitely in field goal range. We basically ran this play 2 or 3 times before this, by the way. We run the same RPO, and the ball just shouldn't have been thrown. There's no reason to force it. He understands the situation this team is in. So turnovers literally are death they might as well be. So he knows the margin of error, or at least he should know, the margin of error is low. So it's just bad decision making, inconsistent accuracy in this game, and his decision making isn't fast enough. It's not decisive enough. It's not confident enough, and it needs to be quicker. It needs to be better, and that's something that's been a problem with him over his career. Is his just get rid of the ball. Sometimes he holds it on for whether it's he holds on to the ball too long because he's waiting for something to get open and there's nothing open, or sometimes he's confused by a coverage, whether that's experience or age, whatever the case may be. That is something that he needs to improve on, and that was very clear in this game, that he was just not processing fast enough. When Fitzpatrick came in the game, it was like butter. He saw it, he got the ball out quick, he knew where he was going with the ball, he knew how to beat the coverage. So he's definitely more decisive with it too. So he just needs to be more confident and, again, just faster decision making. And he needs this with these turnovers and these inaccurate passes. It's with the inconsistent accuracy. Those are all things he needs to improve on. And the Dolphins have an opportunity to select a franchise quarterback, if they so choose, in the upcoming draft, and that is something that they're not going to take it very lightly. If he doesn't perform, I don't care if we just traded a second round. Obviously he's not going to be here. Either that or he'll be the backup for whoever comes in. So he needs to improve, and it's going to be very difficult to do that with this football team because your margin of error is way lower. It's way lower than it would be if you were on a good team because you can make your mistakes, but you could also make your fair share of plays because of the whatever situation you have around you. And unfortunately, he doesn't have that. And he's such a young player. I think it makes him look worse than he actually is because I actually do like him. I think he's going to be, if he ever gets the opportunity, whether it's here or somewhere else, to have a franchise that believes in him, or he steps into a situation where he is, has more talent around him. Maybe he's marinated in a system and he's matured a little bit more with his just playing the position. And that's normal for a young quarterback. It's very normal, especially one of his talents. That's something that we don't see anymore is a pocket pass. What rookie quarterback in the last, 3 years, 4 years, has been a pure pocket passer and been, seriously, been super successful at it? I can't think of anybody right now. Maybe there's someone that it's obvious that I'm forgetting, but I can't think of anybody. Josh Rosen is a dying breed. His type of style takes longer to see the result of because it relies so much on everything above the shoulders, and that takes time, that takes experience, and that's something that he doesn't have here. Maybe he'll get it somewhere else, probably not. He's just never really gotten a fair shake. A lot of dumb decisions when he was in college, constantly changing the offense, I don't understand why that makes anything better. When he gets to the NFL, he's drafted to the Cardinals. They're terrible. Offensive turnover. He goes to the Miami Dolphins. Terrible roster. And he's expected to be the quarterback of this team, and it's rough. And again, his development has been severely damaged because of those things. He's a very talented player. I still believe in his talent, but his development has just not gone the way it probably should have, and that's unfortunate. And hopefully it gets better. But again, it's like I said, he hasn't gotten the most fair shake. So in closing, I will say on the quarterback performances, clearly Ryan Fitzpatrick right now is the better quarterback, and that's all I got to say about that. Receiving wise, no one really surprised me. I was disappointed in Albert Wilson. I was very excited to see Mike Gesicki get targets for once, which is nice, especially when he gets coverage or leverage that's, favors him. I think he can come down with those plays, and we saw that on Sunday, which was nice. Mark Walton, I thought, played surprisingly well. He did terrible in blitz pickup, though. He got ran over a couple times. That's something that the Dolphins need to address and be a little bit more intelligent with, that this small running back isn't going to be able to take on NFL linebackers. I don't understand why that was a thought that they had. You have a 6 foot, 200-plus pound running back in Kalen Balash who can stick his nose in there and at least block someone. You don't have to put Mark Walton out there in those situations, which I thought that was something that should have been corrected. And Kenny Drake, I thought, had a good game for his opportunities. Got a little unlucky on some of those runs in terms of just tripping and stuff like that. But yeah, the offense was terrible until the last few minutes of the game. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. The offense gets an F if I had to grade them. They get a F. It was very, like, the entire day was just maddening to watch. It was very disheartening. The defense was getting stops, especially early on in that game. They were getting 3 and outs. I think they had 2 3 and outs in a row. When you're at home and you can't do anything, like, it's stuff like that is just very frustrating. Like, you can't have that good of a start on defense and not do anything with the football, especially at home. It was just disheartening to watch the offense because it was very bad. And then obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick comes in and turns things around. So yeah, the offense gets an F. Let's go defensively. Case Keenum was terrible. He finished 13 of 25, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. This is a hilarious stat in my opinion. Terry McLaurin, he finished with 4 receptions for 100 yards for 25 yards a catch with 2 touchdowns. The second leading receiver on the team finished, and it's a tight end, by the way, with 2 catches for 24 yards. And Adrian Peterson was and I'm not even joking, ladies and gentlemen, their 3rd leading receiver with 2 catches for 18 yards. That has to be the first time that's ever happened, that Adrian Peterson finished 3rd on a box score with his football team in receiving. Like, that's insane. The next closest receiver to Adrian Peterson is Trey Quinn with 8 receiving yards. Okay? So, we just lost that. We somehow lost to a team that did that in 2019. Rushing wise, Adrian Peterson had a good day. He had 23 carries for 118 yards. He averaged like 5 yards a carry. But Chris Thompson did not have a good day. He had 3 carries for 12. And Case Keenum was their 3rd leading rusher with 4 carries for 10 yards. So overall, I think some of the bigger takeaways of this game is the scheme. Now, granted, it was against a bad team. And the fact that, obviously if Xavier was playing, this game would have been a little bit different. But the defense played well. They weren't great against the run, but they were okay against the run. They got timely stops when they needed them against the run. I feel like they just got not a lot of opportunities, but I wouldn't say the defensive performance against the run was terrible. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go as far as to say that. The unfortunate thing about this defense is no one on that defensive line can rush the passer. A perfect example of that is when the Redskins were backed up on their goal line and they do a literal deep play-action fake, which the route that Terry ends up completing and catching on is it doesn't look like a long time in real time, but in football time, that especially on your own goal line, that's an eternity. Like, that's an eternity to get that much time backed up on your own one. To throw that route takes a very, very, very long time in football terms. That had nothing to do with the secondary giving that up. That was the defense. If the defense got any pressure, if he had to move a little bit, if he had to wiggle a little bit, that throws off the timing of that throw and it would have been intercepted. Or he would have been sacked because that was a terrible, terrible, terrible play call by the Redskins. He should have been either sacked, fumbled, safety, pick, I don't know what, but it should have been a positive for the defense. But the lack of the pass rush was significant on that play to the point of he got a clean pocket. I mean, a clean pocket on that play action fake and was able to step into the throw and hit Terry. But again, if there was any pressure on that play doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And that's a huge hole with this defense, is being able to rush the passer on on those key downs. I will say this in terms of defensive play calling. There was a clear point of emphasis going into this game that they have to send more pressure, and they did. They did send more pressure, which is something that we've all wanted them to do. That's something that Brian Flores did very well in New England, and that is something that we saw on Sunday. We also saw a little bit more movement in terms of the front. The front moved around a little bit more to confuse the offensive line, and we sent pressures off of that, which was very clever. And that is definitely something that they've worked on over the bye. And, at times it worked. Unfortunately, the talent on this team isn't, great. But nonetheless, again, you're trying something new. You're trying to help the team. You're trying to give them a schematic advantage. And at least they're trying. You know what I mean? And that was noticeable on defense, which is a good thing. They only let up 17 points. They played a good game for what they are. Granted, they were playing a very, very, very bad Redskins team. And, things just didn't go our way. And, again, if Cam Wake, Paul Soliai, like anybody with any kind of, defensive ability on the front seven, that would have been a huge play for the Dolphins. But that play, to me, is a perfect snapshot of why the defense and the talent on the defense is so bad. Like, that play should never work. That was a terrible play call, and it should have never, ever, ever worked. And to me, that was probably the biggest, if not the biggest play in the game. And before we move on, because I almost forgot about the 2-point conversion, because I was about to move on. Before we move on to the fan Q&A, let's talk about that last play call. Okay, I loved the fact that we went for 2. I don't really care. Listen, guys, we're terrible. I don't think it was a bad call to go for 2. Would we have won in overtime? Probably, because we had all the momentum. Our defense was playing good football. Our offense was finally getting something going with Ryan Fitzpatrick in the game. What are our pretty crapping high, but I liked our chances to get that 2-point conversion. The defense was tired. They seemed a little bit out of it. They definitely weren't as confident, let's put it that way, as they were earlier on in the quarter. And I felt like, okay, we have them on their heels. Let's rock and roll. I'm down. Let's go for 2. I have zero issue with them going for 2. That is not why I'm saying what I'm about to say. The play call that they called was absolutely terrible. And let me tell you why. If you have watched football over the last 3 to 4 years, the play that we called is a very popular play. Sean Payton runs it up in New Orleans a lot. He's run it a lot. The Rams have run it quite a few times. And the Patriots were the first ones to run it with Josh McDaniels. So obviously that's where Chad got it from. And they've been every single time those teams that I named have ran that play, it's been a very, very successful play for them. The problem is, this play has been seen and by everyone in the National Football League. I'm sure everybody on that defense, when they're looking at film, has seen that play like 1,000 times. It's a popular play now. It used to be a niche play that it's creative, all this other stuff. Not anymore. Maybe 2 years ago it was. But now it's not. If you're a disciplined defense, you would know, like, oh, I know it's coming. The formation it sells. I mean, I literally, and I'm not trying to be the guy that's like, I don't know what. I'm not that guy. I promise you guys. I wouldn't say this if I wasn't telling the truth. I knew what the play was, and I'm sure people at home did too. This is a very popular play in the National Football League. I knew what the play was before it was ran. My brother was standing right next to me. I said, we're about to throw a screen to Kenyon Drake. If you remember the Super Bowls of years past, dude, the Rams, and I'm not even joking, ran this play on the Panthers week 1 of the regular season. And I haven't prepped for this at all. And how would I know that? Go back and watch that game. And tell me I didn't know this play was coming. It was a bad play call. And the thing that sucked the most about it is you saw the defense recognize what it was right away. I don't think it was Josh Norman. I think it was Dunbar, the Redskins corner, who noticed it immediately and told his outside linebacker what was about to happen. Because everybody had seen that play a million times. Why Chad O'Shea thought it was going to work, I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't have called that play. it's just too obvious. The formation is even the personnel was obvious. Usually you have a slot receiver like Danny Amendola or Cooper Kupp. That's how the Redskins, or not the Redskins, the Rams run that with Cooper Kupp. In the past, the Patriots have run it with, Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola. They've even run that play against us. That same exact play they've ran against us in previous games. In previous games, so this is a play that it's on a lot of film. A lot of teams have seen it. At this point, it's one of those plays where you just kind of got to throw in the trash because it's too obvious. I just hated that play call, and maybe that's only a me thing. I do watch an abnormal amount of football, so maybe that's something that I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about the call. I felt that it was just terrible. I thought it was too obvious, and I just almost missed my point. Personnel wise, it was too obvious. We had Kenyon Drake out there to catch the screen. If it wasn't more obvious that it was a screen, then why the heck is Kenyon Drake? You've seen the formation, it was just too much of a tell. Everything was a tell. The defense knew what was going to happen. It was too obvious, and Chad O'Shea should have known that. And it is what it is, dude. I wish Ryan would have seen the corner call the play out before he snapped the ball. That would have been awesome because we could have got out of a bad play there. Unfortunately, we didn't. It sucks, man. It really, 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 really sucks that we couldn't get in there, but it is what it is, and you got to move on, man. You just got to move on. I just did not like that play call. I thought it was just a little bit too obvious. Personnel-wise, it was a little too obvious, and I think that play's just been beat to death at this point. And clearly the Redskins knew it was coming. This next question. Let's get into the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A, ladies and gentlemen. This is where we answer fans' questions. So if you like that, hopefully you'll continue to listen. This first question comes from Burgess. He asks, was Flores going for two? Just a way of giving the fans an illusion that he's trying to win. No, he was trying to win. I like the call. I felt like we would have had a good chance of getting it. It's just the play call was very poor, in my opinion. But he's trying to win, clearly. The defensive game plan was, I thought, pretty good. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He asks, why has the NFL gone soft when calling some of the worst pass interference calls out there in games in general? One of the things that I don't like about the referees is they're so inconsistent. From crew to crew, what they call is drastically different. And I feel like there's just too much of a gap there. It needs to be more consistent in terms of what they call. Troy Apke clearly pushed Mike Gesicki down on that play, and it should have been an automatic first down. And they didn't call it. It's the consistency that bothers me the most about the play, the pass interference, and even other penalties that bothers me the most. They're just not very consistent with it, and the referees are just not doing their job right now. And the rules are way overly analyzed and complicated for some reason. They're very simple rules, and it doesn't make any sense to me why everything has to be so complicated, because it's not. It's not complicated. It's pretty dang simple, actually. And I just feel like the consistency from crew to crew is just not there. This next question comes from Kid. He says, "Did you see Kenyon on this team? Do you see Kenyon on?" Excuse me. Let's start over. I'm very tired. This question comes from Kid. He asks, Do you see Kenyon on this team next year? He's a gifted runner with breakaway speed, but too often he costs us 2 to 3 yard gains trying to do too much. On a side note, Walton had a respectable game running and catching the ball. Fins up. You're absolutely right about Mark Walton. If it wasn't for his pass protection problems, he would have had a pretty dang good game, but he let up some sacks there. I blame that more on the coaches than him, but I feel like he doesn't do that as much as he used to. I feel like he's, to answer your question, Kid, on the 2 to 3 yard losses, I think he does a better job of getting back to the line of scrimmage and finishing runs and getting what the defense gives him. He's gotten a lot better at it. I feel like it's not a problem anymore. I don't even think it's a problem anymore. So I don't think that's too much of a factor if you're looking at Kenyon Drake for the future of this team. This next question comes from SM. SM asks, I've been saying it from day one with Tua's injury history. Take Tua number one and sit him behind Rosen. Between the two of them, we might get decent quarterback play. The first one that's due to get paid gets shipped off for draft picks. Thoughts? I disagree with the whole Tua Tiger, but his injury history isn't bad. I mean, he hasn't missed significant time since he's been the starter for Alabama. He's had some injuries, but it hasn't cost him to miss like a year with an ACL or like a significant issue like a Deshaun Watson, who had many ACL tears in his life. And he seems to be doing just great in Houston. I don't think Tua has a bad injury history. I think people are concerned about his size and his ability to absorb hits in the National Football League, which you look at some of the players in this league now who are successful, who are young quarterbacks. A lot of them are actually smaller than Tua. Baker Mayfield is smaller than Tua. Lamar Jackson is smaller in terms of weight than Tua Tagovailoa. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. Depending on how well this team is built around him, I don't think it'll be a problem. Any quarterback who's taken 50, hits, a significant amount of hits a year is going to have injury issues. So hopefully the Dolphins can figure that out. I'm not worried about Tua's injury history because there isn't an injury history of significance. It's very minor injuries in my opinion. He's never missed a significant amount of time, like I said, since he's been the starter there, and I'm not really concerned about his size either. So no, I wouldn't be concerned about that. Now, in terms of sitting each of them, I mean, whoever the best player is week one is who I would start, whoever that is. It doesn't matter if I take him number one overall or not. Which I would, if I had to predict the future, if the Dolphins took Tua Tagovailoa, and the confidence that I have in Tua in terms of, I think he's going to be a great player. And I've said this for years now. I think he's going to be a great player. I would assume he would start week one, and he would do just fine. This next question comes from Dez. Dez asks, well, this game made me lose a little faith in Rosen. So what are your thoughts about this game? I think I pretty much have summed up my thoughts about the whole Josh Rosen situation. I think it's very rare nowadays to see the development of a pocket passing quarterback like Josh Rosen. I think it takes a little bit longer. I think it looks a little bit uglier early on, especially since he has a bad team. And I think that's something to take into account. His play style is very different than other quarterbacks. So, and that's something we really don't see anymore. Is that? But I haven't lost faith in him. I feel like if he gets a fair shake, he will be a good player. This next question comes from Alpha. He asks, Skaggs, do you think Eric Rowe has a picture of the coach with a goat? How is it he is starting still? He is a huge liability. Thoughts? He actually had his best game of the year. He really did. Surprisingly. It wasn't a good game. He is a liability and he's not a good player, but we don't have much else. Let's just put it that way. Our depth isn't great at that position. This next question comes from SM. SM asks, Charles Harris or Jake Rudock? You have one step left on your mailing out Christmas cards. Who gets snubbed? Again, this question comes from SM, and the last question came from Alpha, in case I forgot to say. To answer your question, SM, which is a beautiful question, and is an amazing question, if I had one stamp left and you're mailing out Christmas cards, who gets snubbed? Between Charles Harris and Jake Rudock? I would send it to Jake Rudock before I send it to Charles Harris. This next question comes from a corporate gamer. He asks, should we trade for Trent Williams at the trade deadline? No. There's no need. This team would suck anyway. There's no need for that unless you're planning for the future. And you would have to tell me, and I don't want to speculate, you would have to tell me what the draft compensation would be. If it's a first-round pick, I'm hanging up the phone. If it's anything lower than a first, I would consider it. But it would have, him playing this season it wouldn't have any impact on the field, in my opinion. Well, it would the offensive line would be better, obviously. But I don't. I mean, we're not gonna. We're gonna. We would with 4 to 5 games. Like it wouldn't. You wouldn't see some drastic difference. So giving up like a first round pick for a Trent Williams, at the end of the day, probably would be stupid. For the situation they find themselves in now. The next question comes from Take Me Out. He says, what a difference a quarterback makes. He asks, what a difference a quarterback makes. Jets were night and day today with Darnold at the helm. Finns are taking the right approach. Yeah, a quarterback is obviously the most important position in the National Football League, and it has been since the dawn of time. If you don't have someone who can make crucial decisions in crunch time, it rarely works. It rarely works. Let's just put it that way. This next question comes from Ron. Ron asks, what are your thoughts about that catch Mike Gesicki made on the final drive in double coverage? I'm happy that he gets more targets. He just doesn't get enough targets. Just because there's someone on him, it doesn't mean he's covered. He's a very, very good 50-50 ball guy. He deserves more targets down the field, and he deserves more opportunities downfield, and we saw that with a more aggressive mindset from the Miami Dolphins in terms of play calling. This next question comes from SM. SM asks, who was covering Preston Williams? Where was he? Why is Mike Gesicki so soft? Who was covering Preston Williams? Where is he? Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying he wasn't getting open. For most of that game, I feel like it was a combination of poor quarterback play, pass protection not being consistent enough. That's the reason why you didn't see some of those guys play better, because they just weren't given opportunities to. They didn't even get targets, guys. Like, they didn't even get an opportunity. The ball wasn't even thrown near them. Like, that's how bad it was. This next question comes from Take Me Out. He asks, or he says, kudos to you. You've always maintained that Tua is the best quarterback in college football and Jake Fromm was good, but a notch below. How would you rank the college quarterbacks, including those who wouldn't come out until 2021? I'll stick to the 2020 quarterbacks, but if I had to rank a 3 right now, I would say the ones that have the most potential to be franchise quarterbacks from what I have seen so far this season, I would say Tua Tagovailoa is clearly the number 1. I would say 2 is Justin Herbert. And I would say 3 is, I feel like this is a toss-up between a few other quarterbacks. I feel like there's only 2 that I'm confident in that would be that's what I would say. I'm only confident in 2 quarterbacks. Really, I believe wholeheartedly that guy is going to lead my franchise into the future. I would say there's only 2 of them right now, in my opinion. This next question comes from SM. SM asks, besides the crap O-line, with all the speed on offense, why can't we get separation? Okay, so it's a lot of different reasons. Number 1, we don't get time to throw the football. So a lot of the times, the DBs are pretty much just sitting on everything because they know that the quarterback isn't getting enough time. And that's obviously something that the coaches on the other side talk to the players about. So that's number 1. Number 2, a lot of the times it's like 3 versus 8. They might drop everybody back, and the defensive front, say they're rushing 3, only 3 people. We'll block everybody and only send out 3. So that's a significant disadvantage, especially since the defense still gets a good amount of pressure. That's how bad the offensive line is. So either you're outmatched schematically in terms of I have more people in coverage than you have people going out on routes, or the pass protection is just too poor. And it's just a combination of both of those things. It has less to do with the receivers and more to do with those things. This next question comes from Josh. Josh asks, who should we take with our 3 first-round picks? Oh, man. That's a tough one, man. You need a pass rusher. If there's one that pops and is like, okay, this guy is it, whether that's Chase Young or not, I don't know. But if there is one, then that needs to be one of the 3. quarterback needs to significantly be considered there. I would say those are the two. And 3 can really just be anybody, to be honest with you, because this roster just needs talent. This next question comes from Mario. Mario asks, do the Dolphins start Rosen after this game? Whether they should or not is up for debate, but they are going to. Whether they should or not, I'm really not on one side or the other. This next question comes from Take Me Out. He says, the way the Colts built their team in large contrast to the way the Browns have built theirs, I think the Colts have the winning formula. Outside of the quarterback positions, I am a big believer in building the trenches first and then filling them in with skilled positions. What is your idea for the Fins, how the Fins should build? I think you got to find your guy first and then build around him. The Colts, when Chris Ballard got there, Andrew Luck was already there. The Browns had Baker Mayfield, and they actually kind of did the reverse. They actually got rid of too many of their offensive linemen when they should have retained them. They didn't value them enough. And that's coming back to bite them pretty hard right now. But if you have your quarterback, then that's when I feel like you start to, build around him. And you do that anyway. I mean, you don't take a quarterback every pick you have in the draft. You know what I mean? So you kind of do it. You can do both pretty at a successful level. This next question comes from Julian. Julian asks, what's going on with our offensive line? It's not talented. This next question comes from Burgess. He asks, with Josh Rosen being pulled for Fitzpatrick against the dreadful Redskins, hurt his chances of being the guy next season? No, there's too much football left to be played. This next question comes from Burgess. He says, did today's game tell you anything that you need to know did this game tell you anything you didn't know prior to it? Yes, the play calling is significantly different when it's more aggressive, which is to me is stupid. And if someone's going to come in here and be like, or someone might make the argument and say, well, that's because he doesn't have enough experience. That's baloney. Put him in those situations to gain that experience then. This next question comes from Ron. Ron asks, says, I didn't mind the going for 2 for the win. What I did mind was the weak play call by Chad O'Shea went with. Which play would Skaggs have called, or would you have just kicked the extra point? I would have brought in for a goal line run look, play action, and had quick outs on either side. That's not a bad idea. Like a little sprint out action. Maybe you sneak out your tight end or something like that. That's not a bad idea. I would not have been opposed to spreading them out. I feel like that secondary is very, very poor, and I probably would have taken advantage of that. I would have been totally fine with anything under center and play actioning. Anything, other than what we did, really. But if I had to call that play, I probably would have spread them out. And I know our offensive line isn't good, and you would say, well, if you spread them out, then you're kind of leaving your quarterback there. But I like I said, I just don't think that secondary is very good, and I would have probably attacked that. And the offensive line was blocking better up until that point. This next question comes from SM. SM asks, does Brian Flores try too much to be like Bill Belichick on the sideline bother you? Lack of emotion is not good for morale, right? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he does have emotion. I think he does. He definitely shows that in the locker room. I feel like the players like him. But I don't think it's like Bill Belichick. And Bill Belichick's actually pretty. He doesn't like scream and like do a backflip on the sideline. He's a 60-something-year-old man. I mean, he's just not going to do that. But he does if you've ever listened to him mic'd up, he's all up in the players, making sure they get congratulated. He goes to the bench and congratulates them there and tells them they did a good job. He's more involved that way than I think people give him credit for. And I think that's kind of what Brian does too. This next question comes from but it doesn't bother me. No, this next question comes from Corporate Gamer. Corporate Gamer asks, "Now can I say we should draft Tua?" You could have said that many times before. This next question comes from Mario. He asks, "What are some positives? That's a word. You take away from this game." Positives. I don't know if I take any positives away from this game, to be honest with you. If I'm being completely honest with you. I just feel like this team is what it is. This next question comes from Ron. Ron asks, Albert Wilson does not look the same since the hip injury. Do you think he will be kept? He will be kept when he is due the $11 million next season. No, probably not if things keep trending in this direction. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He asks, not a Dolphins question, but what did you think of Tannehill's play for the Titans yesterday, and should he be the starter moving forward since Mariota is garbage? I actually did get a chance to see it. It was Ryan Tannehill, and everybody knows what the heck that means when they're listening to this. This next question comes from Josh Hart. Josh asks, Do you trust our front office and believe we will successfully rebuild? Yes, I do. This next question comes from Josh. He says, after seeing a struggle against a terrible Redskins team, which team or teams remaining on our schedule do you think we have a chance of beating? The Jets at home. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. Corporate Gamer asks, what did you think of Jacob Eason? I mean, I didn't really think anything, to be honest with you. You know who I think? You know what? I take that back, because that just reminded me of something. You know who had a good game? Vince Beagle. That's who had a good game. He had a really good game, actually. That if there was any positive, I forgot about Vince. He was the positive. He had a very, 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 very good game. In terms of quarterbacks that aren't on this roster, Jacob Eason, I really don't have a particular thought about the Washington quarterback. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you there, Corporate Gamer. Haven't watched enough of him. This next question comes from Ride Sharing. He asks, who sucks more, the Dolphins or the Jets? I don't know. Well, I mean, this next question comes from Ron. He says, now that it's clear I am right about Josh Rosen as not being the guy for the Dolphins, which quarterback in this upcoming class has the it factor for you? My short list is 201, 2 Fromm, 3 Burrow, 4 Eason. I don't agree with the whole Fromm thing. I don't like Jake Fromm. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a good NFL. He's a good college quarterback. He can orchestrate a college offense and win games, but he is not an NFL quarterback. This next question comes from Mario. He asks, what did you think about the blocking? The blocking was better than Fitz got in. What did you think excuse me, I'm so stupid. He asks, why do you think the blocking was better when Fitz got in? He got the ball out faster. The play calling was a little bit more aggressive. We spread him out a little bit more. There's more receiving options out there. He read the coverage faster, and he was just able to think faster and play faster. This next question comes from Ron. He says, do you think it was a mistake benching Isaiah Prince at right tackle? Just put Jesse Davis back on the field when Prince was opening holes in the run game, especially how Prince looked good with Boehm next to him at right guard. You know what? I would actually agree with this. I don't think it would have made a significant difference in anything that happened in that game, but yeah, I think he's a good run blocker though. We probably should have tried him at guard. This next question comes from SM. SM asks, Fitzpatrick was better than Rosen because Fitz just doesn't give a flip. Can he be taught? Can that be taught to Rosen? I don't know if that needs to be taught to Rosen. I don't think it's because he doesn't give a flip. I think it's just he's a smarter. Well, he's not smarter. He's just more experienced, you know. And the throw that he had to Mike, I mean, that's an NFL quarterback throw. I mean, that's something that you need to throw, and at least give your guy a chance. Sometimes that's the, you know, some of the stuff you have to do. I will say this though, Ryan Fitzpatrick's deep ball is just it's not very good. His ability to drive the ball down the field is definitely lesser than Josh Rosen, that's for sure. That was very noticeable on a play to Preston Williams that should have at least been in play for Preston, that ended up sailing out of bounds. But anyway, that is going to be it, guys, for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I appreciate your questions. I am very tired. So I'm going to let you guys go. But, you know, I don't know what else to really say other than, you know, at least it was a competitive game. But this is definitely going to be, let's put it this way, an experience, to put it lightly. So I am Skax383, and I will see you guys in the next one.